It had been 15 years since I returned to the old house, the place where my mother died when I was just a child. In that desolate house, filled with the lingering scent of decay, my mother still cooked fish soup, still set out offerings of rice, still waited for me to have dinner. But she was dead, wasn't she? Those who are dead often don't even realize they've passed on. After that trip, every night, Huong would dream of a girl. Her face hazy and indistinct, yet strangely familiar, as if Huong had met her somewhere before. This dream repeated itself for an entire week, always waking her at 3:00 a.m. The same old dream, she thought. Why do I always see that girl? She tried to shake the images from her head, returning to bed to fall back asleep. This time, in the dream, the strange girl appeared on the placid, mirror-like surface of water, her footsteps so light it was as if she didn't touch the ground. The surroundings were plunged into an inky black, silent and cold, making one both fearful and compelled to step forward. The darkness didn't devour, but rather beckoned with an enchanting allure. Huong moved onward, the light receding behind her, her eyes blurring from the thick, smoke-like mist. Instinctively, she raised a hand to rub her eyes and suddenly noticed a red string tied around her ring finger. The red string seemed alive, gently taut, guiding her, whispering in her mind, "Keep going." Without knowing why, she continued to walk, as if instinct had replaced reason. Her heart beat steadily, but her mind was empty. All emotions had coalesced into an intense curiosity. Where is this string taking me? She stopped when she realized the red string was growing shorter. Following its path, she saw it connected to another hand, long and pale, as if drained of blood. The bone joints were clearly visible beneath the cold, rigid skin. A chilling sensation ran down her spine, yet somehow she still moved closer. Huong was only a few steps away from the girl, standing right behind her. Perhaps due to the fog, Huong hadn't clearly seen her earlier, but now she noticed the girl wore a purple brocade Iba bag outfit, her long hair cascading down to her waist, and old wooden clogs on her feet. The girl had her back to Huong. Unable to resist, Huong reached out and lightly touched her shoulder, but at that exact moment, the other's body disintegrated like smoke, dissolving into the hazy mist. Suddenly, an invisible force violently pushed her chest. Huong jolted awake, gasping for a deep breath, as if she had just fallen from a great height, her heart pounding, sweat beading on her forehead. Who was that girl in my dream? Was it just a dream, or something more than a dream? A thought flashed, making her wonder about the girl. But the pressure of finances was greater, forcing her to temporarily put that question aside and get ready for work. Huong worked as a customer service representative, handling hundreds of calls every day. The pressure, difficult clients, a scrutinizing boss, everything piled up, leaving her constantly exhausted. Finally, the clock struck quitting time. On her way home, she stopped by the grocery store to pick up a few things. Back at her apartment, her dog, Choco, ran out to greet her, tail wagging furiously. She patted its head, feeling a momentary peace. Her apartment was on the 10th floor, a compact space with the cool gray tones of bare concrete, dark wood, and clear glass, yet the evening light filtering through the thin curtains cast a soft golden glow on the floor, making the place just warm enough not to feel lonely. The moment she opened the door, Choco trotted out, its short legs bustling, tail wagging like a tiny broom. Huong bent down slightly, stroking its head out of habit, as if only in this moment could she feel truly present in the world. Still, the exhaustion didn't let up. After a long day of being drained of energy, she still had to continue her familiar chores, cleaning the house, feeding Choco, preparing dinner, showering, before finally collapsing onto her familiar bed. She just hoped she wouldn't dream tonight. But that hope once again vanished. Huong jolted awake, her heart pounding, her throat parched, as if she hadn't had a drop of water all day. The clock showed exactly 3:00 a.m., but the dream was back, an exact repeat. The same girl, the red string, the hazy mist. She touched her, and she vanished. This was the second consecutive week she had dreamt of the girl, just like the previous nights. The scene of the still black water, the thick mist covering everything, the red string connecting her to the mysterious girl. Ibabe. She had touched the girl's shoulder, and again watched that body dissolve into the mist. But this time she also heard a faint whisper, like wind rustling past her ear. "It's almost time." The next morning she arrived at work, her eyes bloodshot, her complexion pale. Her boss frowned, telling her to get some proper rest, but she only managed a strained smile. At lunch in the cafeteria, her eyes unconsciously drifted to her ring finger. For some reason, she felt a slight pricking pain there, as if something had been tightly constricted around it all night. When she pulled up her sleeve to look, she froze. There was a thin red mark, like a thread, etched onto her skin. That night, while feeding Choco, she unconsciously asked, "Choco, have you ever seen anyone strange in our house?" Choco froze, neither barking nor reacting, but its gaze fixed on the corner of the room where the dry light shone, sending a chill down Huong's spine. In the days that followed, the dream continued, like a film played on a loop. Once, she dreamt she was no longer the one following the red string, but the one standing at the other end, in the purple jibabe, hair flowing, slender, pale hands, eyes murky like mist. When she woke up, her whole body was trembling from the cold, but the most terrifying thing was that her feet were still wet, as if she had just walked through water. Then reality began to bleed into her life. One evening, she heard the sound of water gurgling in the bathroom. It was past 11 p.m. She walked over. The bathroom light was still on, though she distinctly remembered turning it off earlier. Opening the door, the faucet wasn't running, but the sink basin had standing water, dripping steadily. Plop, 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 plop. She wiped it clean and turned away. But behind her, the sound of water began again. The next morning, she went to put on her usual bracelet, but in the trinket tray, instead of her bracelet, was a coiled length of red string, identical to the one in her dream. She held her breath. No one else had a key to her apartment. Then Choco started staring intently at the corner of the room by the window. It growled, ears perked up. Once it even barked at thin air, before turning to hide behind Huong's legs, trembling. That corner was precisely where the girl from her dream had stood with her back to Huong. The next night, when she woke, her ring finger throbbed. Looking down, she saw a thin red mark, as if a string had been tightly cinched around it. One evening, while washing dishes, she heard a whisper right next to her ear. Huong startled. Turning around, there was no one there, but in the sink, a water hyacinth petal floated idly with the current. She stood frozen. She lived in the city. Where would a water hyacinth come from? Why was it so similar to her dream? She began to be afraid, unsure if the dream was seeping into reality, or if reality itself was falling into a long waking nightmare. That girl, the red string, the wooden clocks, everything repeated, as if an invisible law was pulling her deeper. If I dream again tonight, perhaps this time I won't turn away. Yeah. Well, and say, is that fine? Sure. For the past 2 months, Huong hadn't had a single night of good sleep. She constantly dreamt, over and over, the same old dream. The girl in the mist, the red string tied to her finger, the gentle touch, and then vanishing like smoke. Though it was a dream, the sensation of waking up each time was terrifyingly real, as if someone had just left the room seconds before she opened her eye. At first, Huong tried to ignore it, thinking she was just too tired, working too much, leading to hallucinations. But as time went on, the strange occurrences in her small apartment steadily increased, silently and regularly, like some cold, creeping rhythm latching onto her life. In the evenings, she would turn off all the lights, but the next morning, the bathroom light would still be on. The faucet, though tightly shut, would have streaks of water dripping rhythmically onto the tiled floor. Once she was reading, Choco asleep at the foot of her bed. Suddenly, it sprang up, barking towards the window, where the curtains subtly moved, despite there being no wind. Its ears perked up. Its whole body tensed as if it had detected something she couldn't see. Every morning when she woke up, she felt a slight pricking ache in her ring finger, as if a thread had been tightened around it. When she looked down, there was always a thin, red mark circling her finger, a constriction no one had caused. Huong didn't tell anyone, not even Minhan. Her friends were all busy, practical people, none of whom paid attention to dreams or the supernatural. Huong herself used to be the same. She would scoff when someone spoke of spirits, negative energy, or dreams that felt real. But now, every time the light flickered, every time Choco growled towards a corner of the house, she didn't dare breathe deeply. I'm just tired, it's just overwork. There's nothing else. She repeated these words to herself like a machine, as if trying to hold on to the thread that kept her tethered to reality. But Huong knew clearly that something was repeating, and it was getting closer. Some nights, she woke to find her bedroom door ajar, even though she was certain she had locked it. Other times, she left her phone charging on her desk, only to find it next to her pillow in the morning. All these small, disjointed things, yet they repeated, like a silent message. And then, one morning, while washing her face, she looked up into the mirror and saw a faint purple shadow behind her. She whirled around. No one was there, but the floor still had small water streaks, as if someone had just stepped out of the bathroom. No matter how much she wanted to deny it, Huong couldn't ignore it any longer. Something or someone was still very close, waiting for her to remember, or waiting for her to step further into a place of no return. Huong once didn't believe in things like ghosts, fate, yin and yang, or destiny. To her, it was all superstition, the imagination of the weak. But over the past 2 months, what had happened chipped away at that belief, bit by bit. She had tried everything. Sleeping early, avoiding her phone, taking tranquilizers, turning off the lights, leaving them on, listening to meditation music, burning still return every night. But the dream still returned each morning she woke. Huong felt drained, her head throbbing, eyes burning, heart heavy. Choco became increasingly erratic. It no longer ran and played, but quietly curled up in a corner of the room or stared intently into space with an alert gaze. She knew she was slowly exhausting herself, and something had not yet released its grip. One late afternoon on a weekend, after showering, Huong opened the cabinet to get a towel for her hair. As she closed the cabinet door, her eyes accidentally caught a small object falling to the floor, a red string neatly coiled into a ring. She stood frozen. It was the 3rd time that week she had seen that string, its origin unknown. And it was the first time she truly felt afraid. That night, Huong sat before the mirror for a very long time, the yellow lamplight casting her face in an unfamiliar, pale light, as if this body no longer belonged to her. The feeling was profoundly alien. Her eyes no longer held the clarity they should, replaced instead by a vacant stare. During those unsettling days, Huong began to withdraw, no longer speaking much with anyone at work, not participating in group chats, not eating lunch with colleagues, just quietly working, and then going home. Only one person noticed this. Min Hang, a long-time colleague in her department, a year or 2 older than her. She was cheerful, but perceptive. One day, as Huong was making coffee in the corner of the room, Min Hang approached, not looking at her, simply remarking casually, "You look very pale lately. Not sleeping well?" Huong was slightly startled, flustered. "Oh, I guess I'm just tired." Min Hang looked at her, tilting her head slightly. "Tired? Or encountering things you can't explain?" Huong looked up, her gaze meeting Min Hang's slow, knowing look. Something stirred within her. For the first time, she felt someone was truly listening. A moment of silence passed. Then Huong softly said, "I've been having dreams. I dream of a girl whose face I can't see. But I clearly remember a red string tied to my hand." Min Hang was silent for a few seconds, not exactly scared, but her expression became serious. Then she gently nodded, her voice lowering. "A red string signifies fate, but some strings aren't meant to be tied. Do you remember the woman I took you to see before? She's rumored to be very skilled. She might be able to help you." "I think so. Yeah. None is fine, easy tame." That night, back home, Huong kept thinking about Min Hang's words. Unlike others who would scoff or reassure her with rational explanations, Min Hang wasn't panicked, nor did she dismiss it. She spoke like someone who understood and was pointing the way for Huong. The next day, Nin Hang proactively stopped by Huong's desk and handed her a folded piece of paper. "Miss B, Huong is very good. She doesn't advertise, but she's well known. She only sees those who are fated to meet her. And if you can't bear it anymore, try going." Huong opened the paper. The handwritten note was simple. "Miss Huong only reads unfated connections." At the bottom was a phone number written in purple ink, the handwriting clear and firm. Huong took the paper and put it in her pocket, saying nothing, but deep inside, something began to shift. Perhaps it was time she stopped denying it. Fate does not end. Blood does not dry. The one who saw the karmic promise now comes to claim a life of forgotten pasts. Pay her back. She is waiting. Oh, Ding Sydney. That's all. The address on the old paper was a jumbled series of numbers, almost hastily written, the purple ink smudged. Yet, strangely, when she entered it into her phone's map, Red Star Alley immediately appeared. Huong had never heard this name anywhere in the city, but the map clearly showed the location, less than a 4-hour drive from where she lived. That afternoon, she put on a thin jacket and tied her hair back. The vague feeling that had plagued her for months now seemed to be guiding her down a path from which there was no turning back. The sky was unusually gloomy, even though it wasn't yet the rainy season. The road into Red Star Alley was narrow and bumpy, lined with overgrown trees that almost completely obscured the light. The air in the alley was thick with the scent of damp mold and the sweat of time. When Huong reached the end of the road, she found herself facing rice fields. The wind blew fiercely, as if trying to push her back, preventing her from reaching her destination. But her resolve was strong now, compelling her to press on, no matter what. After a 5-minute walk through the rice paddies, she finally saw the temple. The scene was the same, yet after 2 months, the atmosphere here still felt ominous. The old banyan tree seemed to have grown even larger, its roots beginning to lengthen, strikingly resembling human hands. But now there were also human faces on its trunk, some weeping, some laughing, some angry, looking utterly grotesque. Huong was terrified to be in a place that felt like the underworld. But she was in trouble, so she gritted her teeth and made her way forward. She didn't hesitate, quickly entering the temple. The interior was just as it had been, unchanged. A thin wisp of smoke still drifted gently in the temple courtyard. Now, she cared about nothing else. All she wanted was to find the person who called herself Miss Huong. Yeah. As she walked around the temple looking for her, Huong suddenly felt a hand tap her shoulder. She involuntarily turned around. Standing before her was a girl with blonde hair. Huong had never seen her before. She wore a loose t-shirt, athletic pants, and held a bag of mixed rice paper salad. "Huh, what are you doing here?" "I've come to find Miss Huong." The girl munched nonchalantly, gesturing for Huong to follow. She led Huong into a room containing several cabinets with various objects and a few types of traditional herbal medicine. A black and white photo hung on the wall. In the center of the room was a wooden table and chairs with a blue tea set on the table. Huong sensed that the place was different from when she had first visited over 2 months ago. There was still the strong smell of herbal medicine, which would be unpleasant for anyone not accustomed to it. A black cat lay on the table. The girl pushed a cup of tea towards her. "Drink it. Yeah, to sober up. Yeah, Huong had been observing this girl for a long time. She had never met her on her previous visit. "Who are you?" The girl finally looked up, her eyes sparkling with amusement and something else, a knowing. "I'm Huong's younger sister." Huong withdrew her hand, not drinking the tea. A sense of unease spread from the back of her hand up her spine. The air in the room seemed peaceful, yet there was a stillness, as if everything was too motionless, no longer quite in the present. Huong's gaze settled on a small corner of the wall where an old, faded black and white photograph rested. In the photo was a family dressed in black, Gao Dai. Their long hair either tied up or flowing down, eyes staring straight ahead, a gaze that seemed to pierce through the glass and into Huong's chest. Huong shuddered. "Is that your family?" she asked, her eyes not leaving the picture. The blonde girl licked her fingertips, burying her hand back into the bag of mixed rice paper. Still chewing, still nonchalant. "My clan. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, God, you don't see." The blonde girl, still chewing, pointed to a door behind a tattered red fabric curtain. "My sister is in there." Huong stood up, hesitant, but still walked forward, each step feeling as if it were being held back by some invisible string. The moment her hand touched the curtain, the air suddenly turned cold, so cold that goosebumps rose with every breath. Behind the curtain was a small room, dimly lit by an oil lamp, making everything seem veiled in a thin mist. In the center of the room was a low wooden table covered with a small cloth. A girl sat behind the table, her long hair cascading over her shoulders, her face subtly angled in the flickering lamplight. She looked about Huong's age, but her expression held a terrifying serenity, as if she had lived many more years than her actual age. When Huong entered, Huong didn't stand up. She merely looked up, her dark eyes deep and cold. "What do you want from me?" Huong nodded slightly, still reeling from the strange journey. She stood frozen for a moment before speaking slowly. "Hello, Miss Huong." One corner of Huong's lips curved slightly, a half smile that wasn't quite a smile. "I'm only 20. Yeah, don't call me." Miss Huong blinked, flustered. "Sorry, I just say it out of habit." "It's fine. Many people call me that, especially those who come to me to see their future and fate." The remark brought a beat of silence to the room. Huong sat down, her hands clasped together. She tried to compose herself, but her voice still held a slight tension. I don't know what kind of fate I've stumbled into. It's just that lately, I keep dreaming of the same person. Every night, a girl on dark water with a red string. I feel like I'm being pulled somewhere, and I can't sleep. Huong flinched. Huong had just articulated exactly what she hadn't yet managed to say. Every time you wake up, it's exactly 3:00 a.m., isn't it? Your chest feels heavy, as if something is pressing down on it. Some nights, you even hear water running even though the faucet is tightly shut. Is that right? Huong gripped her hands tightly. She knew. Huong leaned forward, reaching into a table drawer to pull out a neatly folded black cloth, which she gently placed in the center of the table. You're not being followed. You're being betrothed to a spirit. Betrothed. Huong looked directly into her eyes, unblinking. Unblinking. Someone you owed from another lifetime. Huong spread the black cloth on the table, carefully placing 3 Ingu-long coins in the center. Her hand gently brushed over them, her lips murmuring strange, low words like an echo from an unknown place. Huong sat motionless, sweat beading on the back of her neck. The scent of incense mingled with the cold ashes and something pungent, like dried blood and the strong aroma of herbal medicine. The 3 coins suddenly spun on their own, as if blown by an unseen force, then stopped abruptly. A clinking echoed, then silence. Huong looked at the divination, her brow slightly furrowed. Strange, why is that? Huong whispered, her voice barely audible, as if afraid to break the room's atmosphere. Huong didn't answer immediately. She picked up a small artemisia branch, dipped it into a bowl of 5-colored water, drew a circle around the 3 coins, and began chanting again. But this time the oil lamp's flame suddenly extinguished, though there was no wind, plunging the entire room into darkness. Outside, the black cat let out a long, piercing hiss, as if someone had stepped on it. Huong jumped up, startled. What's happening? Something is blocking me. It's locking the divination, not letting me touch it. Huong said softly, her voice slightly agitated. This karma is not ordinary. Fighting back. What does that mean? It means the entity following you doesn't want to be revealed. It has lived longer than this lifetime. Huong felt her blood run cold. Huong stood up, turning to get another bundle of incense, but didn't light it. She remained silent for a long time, as if pondering something, then turned back to look straight into Huong's eyes. If you leave here right now, no one will call you Huong anymore. What? I need to keep you here for a while. If you return to the city now, that demon will become more aggressive. It's testing your limits. Without a barrier, you might not wake up again. Now. Huong was speechless. She had never thought she would hear words like these, and certainly not from someone her age, sitting in an ominous room with such piercing, chilling eyes. So how long do I have to stay here? Until I'm strong enough to face it, or until it reveals itself? The moment Huong agreed to stay, Huong gave her a dark wooden Jedepixu bracelet. Wear it. Don't forget your name. Huong extended her hand, but as Huong fastened it, her finger accidentally brushed against a birthmark on the back of Huong's wrist. Huong's eyes paused for a second, but she said nothing, only a faint smile. Huong spent her first night at the temple, but she didn't truly sleep. The small room was deep within the compound behind the temple, with thin wooden walls, a cold floor, and a window that looked directly out at the banyan tree. Outside, it was so dark, it seemed moonless. She lay on the old woven mat Huong had given her. The thin blanket draped up to her chest wasn't enough to keep her warm. In the middle of the night, the wind stopped. There was no sound of insects, nothing at all. Only the prolonged sound of hair dragging on the tiled floor, as if someone was drying wet hair by walking across the room. Huong opened her eyes. The walls weren't cracked, but something was slithering beneath the wood. She didn't scream. She was too accustomed to fear to panic. But her throat tightened when a whisper echoed right beside her ear. Huong, have you forgotten me? A voice, cold to the bone, was uttered. She felt this voice didn't belong here. It wasn't Ingok. It wasn't Huong. She jolted upright, her trembling hand fumbling for the G Pixie bracelet Huong had given her that afternoon. The silver on her wrist flashed once, and the whispering instantly ceased. But the wind outside the window began to howl, though no trees stirred. The next morning, Huong went to the kitchen early. Tingok was cutting herbs, while Huong was burning incense at the ancestral altar. No one asked if she had slept well, as if both already knew the answer. After breakfast, Huong led Huong to a side altar on the left of the temple, a place only family members were allowed to enter. The air here was thicker, heavier, with the scent of mugwort, chicken blood, and something like freshly turned earth. On the altar was a small dark brown wooden box carved with the image of a bun of hair tied with a red string. Huong didn't look at Huong, only spoke in a voice just loud enough to be heard. From now on, every morning, you must light 3 sticks of incense and place a drop of your blood into the bowl of water. If you don't, that girl will enter your dreams. Huong froze. She had never considered having to use her own blood for an offering. That thing is still following me, isn't it? Huong nodded, her hand gently touching the wooden box. This is not an ordinary entity. It was created from a very ancient grudge. Huong felt a chill. She whispered, "Grudge." Huong didn't answer. She simply looked straight into Huong's eyes, her voice suddenly deepening. Don't call its name at night. Don't turn mirrors towards the window. And if you hear a knock at the door in the middle of the night, don't open it. In general, limit opening doors at that time. Unless I call you, even if the voice sounds like anyone else. That afternoon, when the Singok was out, Huong tidied her room. As she pulled an old blanket from a bed drawer, a yellowed piece of paper fell out. Its corner torn, the writing slanted as if written with the left hand. Only a single line. It will only let go when the old one is willing to die. Huong read it again and again, her heart constricting. She had never killed anyone. But who was the old one? And if they weren't willing to die, would someone else die in their place? Life at the temple gradually changed Huong's habits. She woke early to help the Ingok cook, cut herbs, and clean the altar room. Every morning, she dripped a drop of her blood into the water bowl, as Huong instructed, to prevent the girl from pulling her deeper into her dreams. The old temple was quiet. The wind seemed to circle without escaping, and bird calls rarely penetrated its grounds. But one thing was always abundant: Singok's laughter. Huong, look! The cat's hiding under the cabinet, stealing food like a human. The little girl bustled across the courtyard, her blonde hair a disheveled mess, cradling the lazy black cat like a ball of cotton. There was something very pure about this Ingok, a stark contrast to the eerie atmosphere of the temple. It was this very purity that helped Huong cling to reality. When she felt tired, all she needed was to hear the Ingok's call, "Huong, have you eaten yet?" And her heart would inexplicably calm, like water settling clear. That night, Huong still dreamt, but this time there was no water, no red string. Only a locked room, 4 black walls, and in the center, a figure in a long white dress, hair cascading over its face, standing with its back turned. Huong didn't know why she trembled so much, even though this dream held nothing overtly strange. When the shadow turned, beneath its hair, there was no face. Only a single red eye in the middle of its forehead. The eye blinked once, and she woke, cold sweat dampening her back. From outside the window, wind chimes gently tinkled, even though there was no wind. The evening descended like a thin layer of smoke, the banyan tree in the temple courtyard drooping like old, long hair. The wind rustled, and the scent of ashes and incense lingered in the air. Suddenly, there were footsteps at the temple gate, followed by lively voices. "It's been so long since we've been back here." Huong, who was arranging incense in the altar room, paused. 4 figures were stepping over the familiar threshold. Leading them was a poised woman with sharp, elegant features, Toc Tien. Behind her was Mai, in wide-leg pants and a t-shirt, wearing red lipstick, her eyes quick and observant, as if nothing could escape her notice. Dong Quini and Hao Hong trailed behind, carrying bags of fruit and incense. When their eyes met Huang's, everyone paused for a moment. "Still the same, still refused to grow up, Huang." Toc Tien stepped forward, smiling softly. "I don't need to grow up," Huang replied, her voice calm. "Is everyone doing well?" Mai interjected, raising an eyebrow. "We are, thanks to you. If it hadn't been for that charm you made for Trang back then, a spirit would have followed her home. I don't even know if it was a charm or some kind of herbal magic," Toc Tien joked. "All I know is that after that night, everything became peaceful. We came back to thank you," Dong Queen said, her gaze lingering momentarily on the temple. "Even if it's a bit late." Huang nodded gently, her gaze sweeping over all 4 of them, pausing at Dong Queen, who was the same age as Thingok, but much quieter and more reserved. "It's enough that you all came. It's been a long time since this temple heard human voices." From inside, Thingok poked her head out. Seeing Dong Queen, she cried out, "Queen, when did you get here?" Dong Queen flashed her first smile of the day. "I've been watching you cause all sorts of mischief." The Thingok ran out, pulling Dong Queen, then glared at Mai and Toc Tien. "What's this? So many people. Are you planning to turn the temple into a meeting place?" Everyone burst into laughter, a light-hearted moment, as if there were no shadow lurking behind them. Huang, who was wiping a table in the back and looking out at the courtyard, stiffened when Dong Queen's eyes met hers, the same silent gaze as the night before. Huang, as if knowing this, glanced at Huang, then turned to Toc Tien. "Well, that's good. Everyone who came today must have a continuing fate. Stay for dinner, With more people in the temple, perhaps the spirits will cause less trouble. Her voice was half joking, half serious. No one replied. The wind blew through the temple courtyard again, carrying the pungent scent of decaying wood and burnt dry leaves. And in the corner by the banyan tree roots, a black cat stared intently at the gate, as if it saw that everything had fallen into its predetermined orbit. The atmosphere in the temple felt stranger than usual these days. Still, the moss-covered tiled roof, the old banyan tree casting its long shadow over the courtyard, still the gentle breeze and the faint scent of herbal medicine in the air. But since 7 people had come to live there, the once quiet and somber temple seemed to come alive. Huong woke early, with no sobbing in the middle of the night. No recurring nightmares, just the heavy feeling on her back, as if someone had sat by her bed. Huong had instructed her to stay within the protective barrier and not leave the temple without permission. She obeyed, partly out of fear, partly because she didn't want to trouble Huong further. Why isn't Huong burning incense today? Dong and Quinn asked. Why bother burning it? Huong replied, her eyes not leaving the small book she was reading. The weather is nice today, and you all are so loud, even the ghosts have probably left. Huong chuckled, cutting guava as she spoke. The temple feels more like a dormitory these days. 8 girls, and still some ghosts. That's really something. Everyone burst into laughter. Beneath the moss-covered roof, the laughter echoed, dispelling some of the perpetual chill of the place. Yet, somewhere in the courtyard, the faint scent of leftover incense from the night before lingered, subtly, persistently. That afternoon, sunlight streamed through the leaves, and the temple courtyard resonated with boisterous laughter. Hey, run fast, it's chasing us. Chumi, her hair tied in 2 pigtails, chased Huong, broom in hand, laughing as if she might collapse. Hongok fought, and the Ingok held their stomachs, laughing on the stone bench. Dong Ni sat on the steps, her legs crossed, watching her friends. If these kids lived in the city, the neighbors would be calling the police constantly. Thao Trang, the oldest in the group, shook her head, smiling, then sat next to Mai, watching the children play and peeling fruit. On one side of the courtyard, Fuong and Huong sat under the shade of the banyan tree, both holding cups of herbal tea, leaning against a temple pillar, watching the children play in front of them. Fuong softly said, I never thought a place like this would ever hear laughter. Huong replied, laughter or tears, it doesn't matter. What matters is human voices. The more people there are, the weaker the evil energy becomes. Huong nodded, then quietly added, to be honest, I still feel out of place here, because you're the only one who doesn't know who I am in this tangled web of karma. Huong said, her voice neither heavy nor light. Huong was silent for a moment, then asked, what about you, Huong? Have you always lived here? Huong looked out at the vast empty fields behind the temple, replying succinctly, no, I've lived in many places, but when it's time, I have to come back to settle karma. Huong raised an eyebrow, looking at Fuong as if surprised by the question. Perhaps. Perhaps. Perhaps it's also because of you. Huong was surprised, but before she could ask further, The Thingok ran over, her face smudged, hair flying everywhere. Huong, save me. They're trying to make me a sacrifice. Huong chuckled. Huong moved her leg, making space for the Thingok to hide behind her, and shook her head. Who came up with this human sacrifice game? Dong and Quin's voice echoed. It's just a game. We're re-sacrificing you, Huong. Laughter erupted again. Huong shook her head, but the corners of her lips still curled upwards. She ran and yelled, still clutching the broom. Ah, yes. Anyone who doesn't sacrifice isn't human. Anyone who doesn't sacrifice isn't human. Hao Huan stumbled after missing a step, raising her hands in surrender. Wait. I'm a fairy descended to earth. Don't touch me. Angok Phuoc quickly snatched the broom from Tumi's hand and poked Hao Huan's back. Even fairies have to make offerings. Thingok collapsed onto the stone bench, laughing so hard she couldn't breathe. Dong and Quin, sitting on the steps, also burst into laughter, resting her chin on her hand. Hey, Phuoc, give me that broom. I'll sacrifice Hao Huang. Mai broke off a piece of jackfruit and offered it to Cao Trang. Trang, what's wrong with these kids? Cao Trang, chewing, frowned dramatically. They're possessed by evil spirits. We need to offer them fruit. Mai, without a word, shoved a massive piece of jackfruit into Cao Trang's mouth. Offering done. Now, be quiet, you. Another burst of laughter echoed through the temple courtyard. The wind rustled through the banyan branches, as if joining in the fun. Huong sat quietly for a long moment, then suddenly said, I've never lived with so many people before. Yeah, wow. Let's see. Huong glanced at her. Don't you like it? No, I'm fine. It's just strange. It's been so long since I've been able to laugh so freely. Huong pursed her lips in a faint smile, turning back to look at the children in the courtyard. Everyone here has been drawn into strange things. Some run away. Some cling on till the end. They're not weak. They just need a place to breathe. Huong nodded, then fell silent. A moment later she asked, Are they Thingok, Dong Hong Quin, and Hao Huang the same age? Yes, same birth year, different months. Dong An Quin is reserved, closer to Thingok than Hao Huang, and Ngok Phuoc and Tu Mis are twins. Mrs. Chuy's daughters from nearby. Who's the older sister? Ngok Phuoc is older than Tu Mai by exactly 4 minutes. Huong curved her lips into a smile, then turned to Huong. I wish you had laughed like this a little sooner. Why? So you wouldn't look like someone about to be dragged away. Huong's eyes widened. Why do you say such scary things? I'm telling the truth. Laughter strengthens positive energy. The children's shouts and laughter from the courtyard echoed again. Hao Huang was now wearing a conical hat, leading a procession for deities conjured by Ngok Phuoc, while Thingok shrieked, The fairy has descended! Quickly, light incense to welcome her. Once more, laughter spread like waves. The atmosphere in the temple, though still tinged with gloom, was momentarily forgotten by everyone. Only Huong, amidst all the laughter, felt something moving very slowly, as if someone was pressing close behind her. She turned around. No one was there. But the scent in the air was different. Not incense. Not herbal medicine. It was sweet and cold, like river water. In the distance, the black cat, dozing by the door, suddenly opened its eyes and stared into a dark corner of the temple. Its pupils narrowed, but Huong didn't see. She was looking at Huong, the only one who hadn't laughed loudly, yet whose eyes always sparkled when she turned to the laughing children. But it seemed someone already knew. And as evening fell, everyone retired to their rooms, but Huong tossed and turned, unable to sleep. She lay on her side, watching the moon covered by clouds. A faint clinky echoed, as if someone had gently pushed the window, but there was no one. She stepped out onto the porch. The cold wind brushed her face. Huong was sitting in the courtyard, holding a bundle of incense sticks planted around a small circle of stone. Her posture seemed calm, but sweat soaked the back of her shirt, though the weather wasn't hot. "Can't sleep?" Huong nodded, then sat beside her. They sat in silence for a while, only the sound of the wind and the black cat mewing in the courtyard. "I dreamt of her again," Huong whispered. The same girl, her face hazy, walking on black water. Still, the red string, still vanishing before I could touch her. Huong remained silent. "Huong, you know who she is, don't you?" After a moment, Huong slowly spoke. "Her name is Toc Tien." Huong flinched, her breath catching in her chest. "Toc Tien?" Huong didn't look at Huong, her eyes still fixed on the half-burnt incense sticks. Not everyone is meant to hear that name. Even the Ingok doesn't know. Is she human? No. She is something nurtured by a very ancient grudge. She didn't come to visit. Huong felt as if something had just brushed the nape of her neck. Huong gripped her hands tightly. "Ah, so, what does she want?" Huong finally turned to look at her, her voice deep as wind blowing across a graveyard. "I, myself, must find that answer." At that moment in the temple, the oil lamp suddenly flickered, as if someone had breathed on its flame. Early that morning, while everyone was still groggily waking up, an urgent voice called from outside the temple gate. "Huong, is Huong there?" It was Queen Anne's voice. "And the son only know." The woman wore a thin jacket, her face pale, eyes swollen and red from crying. Behind her, Huong Yen was supporting a young girl, her long hair disheveled, face ghostly white, head slumped on her shoulder. "Troc, something's wrong with her. It's not sickness, we're terrified." Huong said nothing, only nodded slightly. She motioned for Huong to come along, then quickly instructed Dai Thingo, "There, maintain the temple's barrier. Don't let anyone go outside until I return." "Yes, but where are you going?" "To exorcise someone possessed." The statement caused the others in the temple to freeze for a few seconds before Dai Nok quickly nodded, pulling Hao Wang along to tidy the altar as a way to reassure herself. Huong looked up, a fleeting, pensive expression on her face, then turned to Huong. "Come with me. Are you going to perform another exorcism?" Huong swallowed hard. This was her first time encountering such an event. Queen Anne's house was about a kilometer from the temple, an old single-story house nestled amidst a dense garden. As Huong stepped in, she immediately felt a heavy presence the air thick, with a strange scent like wild grass, soaked in water for too long. Toc lay curled up on the bed, a young girl about 20, Kuan An and Huong Yen's half-sister. Troc's eyes were tightly shut, but her hands ceaselessly clawed at the mat beneath her. Her fingers were bleeding from the forceful scratching, tearing the mat, with traces of blood clinging to it. Her lips moved, repeating a strange phrase. The shadow. The shadow. It's got me. The shadow. Huong sat down beside her, taking out a bundle of incense, a bowl of 5-colored water, and a stack of red paper talismans. Her hand quickly drew a strange symbol on Troc's forehead, and the candles in the room immediately flickered violently. Huong, stand close to me. If anything happens, don't run. Huong swallowed hard, nodded, and retreated behind Huong. For a moment, she saw Troc's eyes slightly open, but they were completely devoid of white. Just two deep, opaque, black holes. No one is to enter the room, Huong commanded, then pulled a handful of red string and 4 small wooden stakes from her shirt pocket. She planted the stakes in a cross formation around Toc, connecting them with strands of string. Huong stood pressed against the door, her hands trembling slightly, but someone else refused to stay still. Huong began to chant, her voice steady, dry and cold as ash. Huong felt a chill run down her spine. Toc let out a long shriek, her body arching as if pulled from 2 directions. A soft crack echoed, unclear if from bones or from the mirror on the altar that had just shattered. I'll kill you all, Toc spoke in a voice that was not a girl's. It was deep, dragging, like the sound of someone in a deep well. Then she broke off. Kuan An burst into tears. Huong gestured for silence, her hand drawing another new talisman, which she placed under Troc's pillow. The incense smoke turned murky gray. Huong, come here and help me tidy up. Huong turned away. She couldn't bear it anymore. In that instant, through the window, she saw Dong An Kui now. The young girl, who knows when she arrived, was standing in the courtyard, looking in. Her eyes were fixed on Toc, unblinking, emotionless. Huong was about to call out, but Huong suddenly called her, and Dong An Kui turned and left without a word. On the way back, it was already past noon. Both sides of the road were lined with rustling bamboo groves. Huong walked beside Huong, turning to ask softly, "Did you see Dong An Kui just now?" "Yes, I did," Huong replied succinctly. "You didn't say anything." Huong sighed, frowning. Sometimes, not speaking is the right thing to do. Huong was silent. After a while, she asked, "Why did you drag me into these kinds of situations? I don't know anything about them." Huong raised an eyebrow, looking at her, then replied, half joking, half serious, "Because you're also experiencing what that girl just did. I brought you along to see if you might also end up like one day." Huong glared at Huong, making a face. "You joke in a strange way." Huong chuckled, then lowered her voice, becoming more serious. "Actually, I suspect what happened today is connected to you. That girl, her spirit is strong. So why would she be so easily disturbed and tormented by another spirit? I'm only suspecting that the girl following you caused this." Huong paused a beat. "Connected to me?" Huong, seeing her bewildered, explained, Yes, that girl has a strong spirit. She wouldn't be easily possessed like that. And the shadow that entered her, I suspect it was caused by the girl following you. Huong fell silent. The bamboo groves cast long shadows, the evening wind blowing across their shoulders, cold as if carrying unreleased dreams. The temple gate was already open. The moment Huong stepped in, she heard uproarious shouts echoing from the main courtyard. She looked at Huong, who merely raised an eyebrow and gave a faint, soft laugh. Then both walked inside. And as expected, before them was absolute chaos, a truly riotous scene. In the middle of the temple courtyard, Tingok was swirling in a white geodyne, a bandana tied around her head, her eyes heavily lined with black, as if she had just returned from Halloween. She held a dried banana branch like a ritual staff, howling as if possessed. In the name of Huong, I cast you out of this body. Return to the underworld. Huong was sprawled on the ground, one hand clutching her stomach, the other waving towards the sky, as if in a horror movie. No, I am a horse-faced demon from a past life who followed Lady too. No one can exorcise me. Chillify stood behind. Tingok, her face serious like a chief ritual officer. Summon the spirit of the roasted chicken. Bring the salt, pepper, and lime. What are you all waiting for? Huong ran out from the kitchen, holding half a glass of sugarcane juice, with a lipstick-stained straw. I have some water here. Don't know what kind, but it should definitely exorcise evil. Mai poked her head out from the kitchen shed, clutching a basket of fresh vegetables, yelling, "Hey, hey, hey! I bought that water from the market. Don't pour it out. For justice, sacrificing sugarcane juice is necessary." Chillify shouted, snatching the glass from Huong's hand and splashing it over Huong's head. Huong sprang up, her hair wet and matted, shrieking, "Are you guys crazy? Sugarcane juice is expensive." Huong stood rooted, unsure whether to cry or laugh. Huong next to her let out a long sigh. "What's wrong with you all? Did you drink dog's blood by mistake?" Tingok quickly removed the bandana from her head, her hair a tangled mess like a bird's nest. "We're practicing an exorcism play for the full moon festival, sister," Chillify interjected. Honorary, is there. After the performance, we're planning to collect tickets and start a mobile troupe. Mai mumbled, "They might actually sell tickets, but the audience will end up in the hospital." Tao Trang, now casually sitting under the tree with Mai, holding a plate of fruit, spoke up. "Their script has leveled up now. It has staging props, even sugarcane juice." Mai shoved a large piece of jackfruit into Tao Trang's mouth, her face stern. "Quiet, mother. Let the children develop their art." Laughter erupted, echoing through the entire temple courtyard. Huong sat down on the steps, fanning her face as if to ward off the sun, then turned to look at Huong. "This place isn't at all what I imagined at first." Huong looked at the children, a faint smile playing on her lips. "This temple doesn't forbid laughter. The more laughter there is, the weaker the evil becomes. It's more than fine." Huong slowly nodded, her eyes following the Ingok wrestling with Huong in a spiritual battle the children had improvised. Smoke from leftover incense sticks in the temple rolled dreamily in the midday sun. But then, Huong's gaze stopped. Under the banyan tree, Dong An Quan sat alone, not participating in the games, not laughing, not looking at anyone. She sat, ramrod straight, her hands neatly placed on her knees. Her eyes stared out at the fields behind the temple, as if seeing something very distant or very ancient. While the group was still chaotic with their exorcism play, Thingok suddenly stopped and looked around. Ha! Where did Dong An Queen go? I haven't seen her at all. Angok Phuoc, who was drawing on Tumi's hand, looked up and around. I saw her sitting under the banyan tree earlier, but now she's vanished. The Thingok hurried over to the large banyan tree. Indeed, Dong An Queen was still sitting there, on the old stone bench under the tree. But she wasn't looking out at the temple courtyard as usual. Her eyes were fixed on an empty space behind a cluster of chambao bushes, where there was only shade and cracked earth. Thingok approached, her voice clear. Ensam, well, Dong An Queen, aren't you watching us perform? Well, Dong An Queen didn't answer immediately. Her eyes remained fixed on the darkness within the bushes. After a moment, she spoke softly, her voice flat. No need to watch. I see everything. Dini Yingok blinked. We're performing, and we don't see anything. Dong An Queen slowly turned, her eyes opaque black, covered with a thin, cloudy film like a dead person's eyes. A faint, distorted smile played at the corner of her lips, devoid of emotion. You don't see, but they do. Thingok shuddered. She didn't understand why. Even though it was sunny, she felt a chill down her spine. What strange things is this girl saying? Dong An didn't reply again. She turned her head to look towards the fields behind the temple, her hair falling loosely, covering half her face. A black dragonfly landed on her shirt shoulder, but she didn't seem to notice. Thingok swallowed, taking a few steps back. She suddenly missed Dong An Queen's lively giggles from the days they used to go catch crickets, but now they were gone. She ran back to the temple courtyard, joining her friends who were laughing and shouting loudly, saying nothing, yet not understanding what she was so afraid of. The wind rustled, leaves swayed, but Dong An Queen's dress did not stir. Huong stood still, watching for a long time, unblinking, then turned away without a word, but her lips were tightly pressed together. Huong lay on her side, on the thin mattress, in the small room behind the temple. The wind seeped through the cracks in the door, carrying with it a lingering scent of incense, faint and acrid, like dried blood. She thought she had fallen asleep, but when she opened her eyes, Huong realized she was standing in a vast expanse of murky black water, reaching her ankles, chilling her to the bone. The water's surface was calm as a mirror, reflecting a starless night sky, everything gray. In the distance, a girl stood with her back turned. The wind whispered, carrying a voice, broken like fingernails scraping a wall. What you borrowed, you must return. Her long hair covered her back. She wore a white dress, her arms hanging loosely. On her little finger was still the red string, this time extending directly to Phuong's chest, but it was no longer hazy. When Huong touched the string, the entire surface of the water suddenly swirled as if something was crawling up from the depths, mud and hair and floating arms. From beneath the water, hundreds of hands reached out, clawing at her legs. Pay your debt, return it, return it. A resounding scream echoed from all directions. Huong frantically tried to pull her legs free, but couldn't. A cold hand gripped her ankle, and then a ghostly white face emerged from the water. Eyes bulging, mouth full of teeth. It wasn't human. The girl in white turned around. It was Huong's own face, but her mouth was torn to her ears, eyes empty and oozing blood. Part of her right cheekbone was exposed. Stark white. You borrowed and didn't return. Huong screamed, struggling to run, but the red string tightened like a living tendon connecting the two of them. It began to dig into her skin, blood dripping into the water, forming spreading red circles. A crackle echoed behind her, like bones breaking. Then a tall, gaunt black shadow emerged from the water, its eyes glowing green, its neck long and twisted like a crane's. It crawled close behind her, a strong, fishy stench assaulting her nose. It whispered, "The fairy has returned." Its breath was icy cold, exhaling onto the nape of her neck like ice melting into blood. When Huong whirled around, it opened its mouth wide to its chest, where inside, instead of a tongue, hundreds of eyes were opening and staring at her. She jolted awake, cold sweat soaking her hair and clothes. Her forehead was drenched, her hands clenched so tightly they drew blood. The red string was gone, but her wrist bore a mark, as if it had been tightly bound. Outside in the courtyard, the wind suddenly rose fiercely. The black cat let out a long, high-pitched wail, arching its back as if seeing something very tall. On the porch, the door creaked open of its own accord, and from the darkness, at the end of the corridor, dragging footsteps were heard. That night, the sky was moonless. Heavy clouds stretched across it, and long gusts of wind swept over the moss-covered tiled roof. Inside the temple, everyone was asleep. Only the whirring of the old fan in the corner of the room and the distant mewing of cats. Mai tossed and turned, unable to sleep. She didn't know why. Her back didn't hurt. Her stomach wasn't hungry. Only a gnawing feeling as if someone was watching her from somewhere in the darkness. She got up, quietly stepping outside, intending to go to the bathroom. Wearing only flip-flops, Mai tried to make no sound. The wooden doors creaked from the dampness. She had to lean and push gently to avoid waking anyone. As she reached the main hall of the temple, she froze. The dim light from the oil lamp still burned on the ancestral altar. The afternoon incense smoke had long since dissipated, but there was a figure there. Dong An Queen. She sat on the mat before the altar, her back ramrod straight, hands placed on her knees. Dong An Queen held a bundle of incense sticks upside down, their burnt ends pointing out like porcupine quills, exactly as the ancients prepared incense for sending off. Her eyes were tightly shut, her lips murmuring. Mai couldn't hear clearly. She only knew Dong An Queen was saying something that wasn't Vietnamese. Or if it was, it wasn't clear like the language of a conscious person. The room was so still that Mai could hear her own heart pounding. She held her breath, taking a step back, but accidentally stepped on the edge of a wooden floorboard. Clack! A sound was just enough to make Dong An Queen's head jerk up. She didn't open her eyes, but with her eyes still closed, A distorted grimace appeared on her lips. Not a smile, but something twisted. Mai didn't dare look anymore. She turned and hurried, almost running, to the back of the house, her heart racing wildly. The next morning, Mai sat by the stone bench, holding a warm glass of milk, forgetting to drink it. Toc Tien, who had just washed her hair still wet, squatted beside her. "It's early morning, and your face looks like it's been exorcised." Mai swallowed, looking around to ensure no one was listening. "Last night, I saw Dong An Quinn sitting in front of the altar." Yes, she was sitting neatly, eyes closed, holding a bundle of unlit incense, murmuring to herself. "No, hearing you say that gives me the shivers too. But what if it was just sleepwalking? This temple tends to make people dream strange things." Mai shook her head, her voice lower. It didn't look like she was dreaming. It looked like she was possessed. I saw it clearly. Dong An Quinn wasn't blinking, wasn't moving at all, sitting like a statue. Toc Tien chuckled softly, waving her hand. It was sleepwalking. When I was little, I once woke up and started singing the national anthem in the middle of the night. What's so scary about that? Tien? Don't scare yourself. This temple can easily affect people with weak spirits. Yay! Mai bit her lip, saying no more. But her eyes still followed Dong An Quinn, who was sitting under the banyan tree, staring out at the distant fields, with an air that didn't quite belong to the group of living people. And strangely, Dong An Quinn remembered nothing. When Mai asked, she only managed a strange smile. "Hey, I've been asleep since last night." "Incense? You must be hallucinating." But Mai knew she hadn't been dreaming. The way Dong An Quinn sat, and the way she turned her head towards Mai in the dark. It wasn't Dong An Quinn, or she wasn't Dong An Quinn anymore. The person sitting there was straight back, eyes cold, hands resting evenly on her knees, exactly as she had sat before the altar last night. Early that morning, before the sun was fully up, a faint pink glow silently seeped through the leaves of the banyan tree. In the courtyard, in the temple, the air still held traces of mist. A few shuffling sounds of sandals, the gurgling of water, and calls for borrowing towels, shampoo, and even another 5 minutes of sleep. Huong lay a little longer, then groggily got up. She rubbed her eyes, looking towards the kitchen courtyard where Huong had been up early, boiling water, her back bent under the white steam. "Still sleepy, aren't you?" Huong said, without turning, pouring water into the teapot. Huong rubbed her eyes, stammering, "It's because I dreamt again last night." "Ah?" She nodded, then hesitantly added, "Did you dream?" "No, but I heard you talking in your sleep," Huong replied. The corners of her lips curved. "You called my name 3 times, yelling, 'Huong, save me!' just like in a movie." Huong immediately blushed, waving her hands frantically. "No way! When did I say that?" Huong let out a small laugh, offering her a warm cup of water. "It's okay. If you really are in trouble, I'll save you, whether you call me or not." Huong stood frozen for a few seconds, her heart skipping a beat. She couldn't say anything, only reached out to take the cup of water. Her cheeks flushed. probably because of Huong's words. She was shy and didn't dare look at her, turning her face away to avoid her gaze. Lunch at the temple was usually a battleground of laughter. 7 people, 7 eating styles. Some loved fish sauce, some hated it. Some ate chili like water, others would tear up at a single slice. Today, Huong cooked rice with Huong. Huong picked vegetables, and Huong made soup. When she handed the basket of water spinach to Huong, their fingers accidentally brushed. No one said anything, but Huong felt the warmth from the soup pot wasn't the only thing making her blush. The meal was laid out in the courtyard, a low round tray covered with green banana leaves, laden with braised fish, sour soup, boiled vegetables, and fried eggs. Everyone sat around, eating and chatting merrily. Huong again sat next to Huong. No one arranged their seats, but it seemed to be the default. Whenever they set out food, she automatically chose that spot. Huong still served her the best portions, the head, the middle, the least bony parts. Ting Gok whispered to Hao Hoang, "Hey, hey, those two have something going on." Hao Hoang chewed her rice slowly, rolled her eyes, and nodded. "I see it, looking at each other like that. There's definitely something." Tao Trang didn't bother whispering anymore, speaking loudly across the table. "Hey, are you two really planning to get together? No wonder the fried eggs are as beautiful as Huong's face today." Huong paused with her hand on the vegetables. Huong calmly poured water into Huong's cup. "If you're not together, why are you serving each other food?" Mai shouted, "Oh my God, they're flirting in the middle of the day." "Listen up, everyone. No one sit between these 2 tables. You'll get struck by lightning." Laughter erupted. Huong bowed her head, pursing her lips as if wanting to disappear underground. Huong still smiled, then picked up the last piece of fried egg and put it in Huong's bowl. "Eat quickly. If you keep blushing, I'll think you have a fever." In the midst of everyone's cheer, shuffling footsteps echoed from the outer courtyard. A short, stout woman carrying a woven straw bag, her conical hat askew, her hair tied in a high bun, entered the temple. "Oh, you've eaten already." "Goodness, I was walking by the road and smelled the delicious braised fish. Thought you hadn't served yet." Mai looked up and exclaimed, "Oh, Mrs. Tuiet." The middle-aged woman took off her hat, fanning away sweat, walking in like she owned the place. "Just stopping by. Long time no see. I missed you all so much." The whole table excitedly stood up to offer her a seat. Ting Gok quickly pulled another chair closer to Huong. "Mrs. Tuiet, sit here. There's plenty of rice left." Mrs. Tuiet sat down, looked around, and chuckled. "So many people today, huh? Everyone's faces are bright and cheerful, except for this one." She glanced at Huong, raising an eyebrow, her voice slightly drawling. "Huong is new, isn't she? Her aura seems heavy. A lot of negative energy?" Huong's eyes widened. Tao Trang chuckled, interjecting, "She specializes in fortune-telling by intuition." Mrs. Tuiet slapped her thigh. Getting all down. "No need for intuition. One glance, and I know. This girl is gentle, weak-spirited, easily preyed upon by all sorts of things. Being here is exactly right. Otherwise, she might be dragged away without ever knowing." Mai brought her a cup of tea. I agree she fits in here. You can tell she's prone to dreaming strange things. The whole table burst into laughter. Huong could only scratch her head and give a wry smile. Mrs. Toyet took a sip of tea, resting her chin on her hand, looking out at the courtyard, chewing and muttering. Back then, it was just Huong and Thigok here. Now it's crowded like a charity gathering, but very lively. Young people still laughing and talking. Laughter is good. Where there is laughter, ghosts are reluctant to enter. No nos. Ori. Huong then emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands with a cloth, smiling softly. Then you should visit often, Mother, to add more positive energy for us. Mrs. Tuitt glanced at her, a half smile on her face. I wouldn't dare. All of you here have stronger spirits than me. Mrs. Tuitt is afraid of being bullied now. She leaned towards Huong, speaking softly, yet loud enough for everyone at the table to hear. Huong, you know, she's quite difficult, isn't she? Back then, I even planned to marry her off to Tam, the guy at the end of the village. But she just laughed, like she'd never get involved with a man her whole life. Yet now, I see her glancing at you constantly. Yee. Know him? Down. The whole table simultaneously gasped, all eyes turning to Huong, who was now red as a boiled bitter melon, almost choking on her water. Tingo clapped her thigh. Win, Handy Po. 4. Oh, so you two really have feelings for each other? How, Huong Bufar? Pretending to ignore each other for days? I knew it. Chiumi interjected, her voice teasing. Earlier, Huong even called Huong Ba, and was smiling so much her mouth hurt. Huong wanted to crawl under the table. Huong merely raised an eyebrow at the group, then calmly poured water into her bowl. Huong, eat quickly. You're talking too much. Laughter erupted again, echoing through the temple courtyard, the midday atmosphere as light as fresh snow dawn. Mrs. Tuyet also laughed, but then she stayed seated at the table, unwilling to get up. I asked, Aren't you going home, Mother? She replied nonchalantly, chin resting on her hand. I'll stay a bit longer. It's been so long since I've had such fun. Then she gossiped about everyone in the village, even about who would win the lottery if they married before 30, until Chiomie stood up, clutching her stomach. So, oh no, I'm hungry again. Mother, go home and cook for me. Aungok Phuoc chimed in. I'm hungry too. I just ate, but it feels like I haven't eaten anything. Mrs. Tuyet looked at the clock, clicking her tongue. All right, it's time for the two little devils at home to start screaming. I'm going. If I stay any longer, I'll be gossiping till midnight. She stood up, brushed off her pants, waved goodbye to everyone, still smiling broadly. It was fun. Okay, next time, let me sleep over. Yes, of course. Stay longer to make us happy. Mai replied, still smiling. After Mrs. Tuyet left, the atmosphere in the temple courtyard returned to its usual liveliness. After eating and drinking, the children couldn't sit still. Hao Huong stood up, hands clasped behind her back, mimicking a serious voice. Comrades, today we will perform a love play between a haunted temple and a cool female exorcist. Di Xingok raised her hand first. Me? I have a headscarf and hand-drawn talismans. Who will play Huong? Tumi volunteered. But before she could step forward, Mai pulled her shirt. No, your face is too funny. You can't be romantic. Let Phuoc play. Ngok Phuoc was pushed into the courtyard, her hands clasped in front of her chest. Huh? What's going on, guys? Act soulfully. Look at Huong, you need to be a little shy. Toc Tien yelled from the side of the house, cheering them on. So, right in the middle of the courtyard, the two girls began to act out a scene of secret love with overly coy voices. Oh, teacher, why don't you express your feelings? Because I am an exorcist, I dare not love. Hao Huang, at this point, couldn't take it any more and dramatically collapsed to the ground, pretending to faint. Oh my God, it's too sweet, I'm fainting. Bring sugar to save me. Laughter erupted throughout the courtyard. Mai also laughed, but not entirely comfortably. While everyone was still chaotic with their impromptu romance play, she quietly glanced towards the banyan tree. Dong An Quinn was still sitting there. Just like before, all day, Dong An Queen hadn't participated in any of the games. She sat, ramrod straight on the stone bench, her hands neatly placed on her thighs, her eyes fixed on the rice fields behind, as if listening or seeing something no one else could. A new round of laughter erupted when Tumi's confession failed, and Hao Huang chased her in circles. Mai laughed along, but her eyes never left Dong An Quinn. She realized that not only was Dong An Quinn not laughing, but her eyelids hadn't even fluttered. Mai froze. No one noticed. Everyone was still joking loudly. Only Mai saw Dong An Queen murmuring something, very softly, almost inaudible, but her lips still moved and her eyes were still vacant. In the middle of the courtyard, Toc Tien suddenly shouted, "Hey, everyone!" After the play, "Who's washing the dishes?" All responded in unison, "Not me." Hao Huang pointed towards Dong An Queen. Dong An Queen is just sitting there. Directing but not working isn't allowed. Everyone laughed. A few people whistled for Dong An Quinn, but she still didn't turn her head. Mai stopped laughing. Her hand tightened on the corner of her shirt. A faint, cold sensation spread down her back. Something was wrong, but she couldn't quite name it. The night wind began to turn cold. Each person in the temple washed their hands and feet, curled up in their mattresses, lying close together like tired fish. Every day they would chat idly for a while, then quietly fall asleep, leaving only the chirping of insects outside and the rustling of leaves around the old tiled roof. Mai still couldn't sleep. She lay on her side, facing Dong An Quinn's spot. Under the dim yellow nightlight, Dong An Quinn lay motionless, her back to the room, the blanket pulled up to her neck, her breathing steady. But Mai was not at ease. I say there's no Tien. The image of Dong An Quinn from that evening kept replaying in her mind. The way she sat, ramrod straight before the altar, holding a bundle of incense sticks upside down, murmuring something inaudible, and her eyes vacant like a drowned person. No need to hide. I see everything. Dong An Quinn's voice still echoed in Mai's head. She shivered slightly, clutching the corner of her blanket. Mai muttered, as if asking the empty space, "You're not Dong An Quinn, are you?" No one replied. Only the sound of wind whistling through the gaps in the wooden planks, and Mai's eyes remained fixed on her friend's back. At the same time, in another corner of the temple, Huong turned over, her brow furrowed, her hand gently clutching the thin mattress. Huong was dreaming again. She stood in a water-filled room, the water rising to her knees, icy cold, like melting ice. The water's surface was so calm it reflected the starless night sky. Everything was grey and silent. Facing her, Toc Tien stood there. Still, the girl in the purple, Yi Ba Bai, long hair flowing, her little finger connected to the red string. Her face was hazy and indistinct, as if covered by a layer of smoke. This time, something will happen. Someone won't be able to return, Toc Tien whispered, her voice echoing as if from deep within the earth. Huong screamed, her voice cracking. "What do you mean? Tell me clearly." But Toc Tien didn't answer. She dissolved into the water, leaving the red string tightening around Huong's chest, coil after coil, like living tendons cutting into her skin. Huong cried out and collapsed, her heart pounding wildly. She jolted awake, her breath ragged, cold sweat beading on the back of her neck, her hands still clutching the edge of the mattress as if clinging on to avoid falling back into a terrifying dream. But her heart was still constricted by Toc Tien's last words. "Won't be able to return." Huong got up, quietly pushing the door open and stepping outside. Strong, cold gusts of wind swept across the tiled courtyard and the broken moss-covered tiles. The night wind, if listened to carefully, seemed to carry faint groans, a blurry sound between whispering and weeping. Under the banyan tree, Huong sat alone. No light, no incense, no sound. Only her back silhouette against the dark ground, as if she were a part of the ancient banyan tree itself. Huong approached, her heart still pounding from the dream. She softly asked, "Have you been sitting here all this time?" "Oh." Huong didn't turn around, only nodded slightly, replying softly, "Heard the wind, so I came out to sit. Aren't you afraid of ghosts?" Huong turned, her eyes softening. There was no smile, but something in her gaze made Huong feel warm amidst the cold of the late night. "If I were scared, why would I sit alone? But now you're here." Huong stood silently for a moment, then sat down beside her, shoulder to shoulder. No one spoke another word. The dark wind fluttered their clothes, carrying the scent of damp moss and earth from the old tiled courtyard. Under the banyan tree, the shadows of the two sat close together, leaning against the cold ground. Huong moved closer, gently resting her head on Huong's shoulder. "You know," she began, "when I first came here, I was just scared. Everything was strange. The people were strange. The place was strange. Even I didn't feel like myself anymore." Huong said nothing, only tilted her head slightly to listen more clearly. Huong pursed her lips, her breath forming thin clouds in the cold wind. "But then, ever since you came, everything slowly started to change. Yeah, yes, sir, he sees. Huong turned, eyes meeting eyes, not smiling, not speaking, just waiting. Huong lowered her head, her voice growing softer, as if each word was a deep breath. You always served me food. When I was scared, you didn't laugh at me. When I had nightmares, you quietly sat by my side. I know you often pretend to be cold, but I see everything. Huang leaned in, her gaze still gentle like the peaceful night. So, what do you see? I see that you care about me, not in a general way, but specifically for me. Huang looked up, the wind tousling her hair. But her eyes didn't shy away anymore. I don't know if you noticed, but I've noticed you. This time, Huang didn't evade. She raised her hand, gently tucking a strand of hair from Huang's cheekbone, touching her ever so lightly. I know. Huang held her breath. Did you think I didn't see? I've noticed you for a long time, too. I just wasn't sure if you were scared. Huang smiled faintly, her voice light as a breath. Scared, yes? But still here. Huang took her hand again, this time not letting go. Then don't abandon me again. Ah, crap. A small sound echoed behind them. Huang startled, turning around. On the moss-covered tiled roof of the temple, something was crawling down. It wasn't a rat, nor a cat. It was long and black, twisted like a broken human spine, its limbs indistinguishable, neither head nor tail defined. Each movement left deep claw marks on the tiles, a grating sound like fingernails scraping a coffin. Huang froze. Huang immediately pulled her to her feet. From behind the porch post, a face emerged. No eyes, no nose, only a red, torn mouth stretched to its ears, forming a smile not meant for human. The head slowly tilted back as if sniffing their scent, then chuckled faintly, the laughter wet and slimy, like someone chewing something raw. Then it crawled back onto the roof, disappearing behind the chambao bushes, leaving no trace but a damp black streak. Before Huong could fully recover, chattering, a shrill laugh echoed from inside the house. It wasn't anyone from the house. The laughter was sharp as a needle, steady like an old tape player with a jam tape, repeating a piercing high note. Huong gripped Huong's hand tightly, whispering, "Don't turn around." "Aya, ow, and." But Huong had already glanced towards the temple door, and she saw it. A shadowy figure stood in the middle of the room, right by the altar. The shadow had no face, only a long streak of blood running from its forehead down to its chest, its long disheveled hair swaying as if the air in the house was moving in reverse. It extended its hand, pointing directly towards the courtyard, not towards the temple, but at Huong. A night that seemed peaceful began with a silent warning, and something was returning. That night, the wind shifted direction. Huong stood rooted, her eyes fixed on the moss-covered tiled roof where that thing had just passed. The roof tiles still trembled slightly, as if something heavy, with non-human limbs, had just glided over them. A sticky black streak stretched from the edge of the roof, dripping steadily onto the courtyard, forming splotches like decayed blood. Huong gripped Huong's hand, her own hand cold and white. Do you see it? Huong didn't speak, only nodded, her heart pounding, her ears ringing. It has no eyes. Its mouth torn to its ears, as if smiling. But not a smile. I know it. Huong interrupted, her voice dropping significantly. She swallowed hard, her eyes fixed on the roof tiles, where now only a few dry leaves rustled, but the ghastly aftertaste still lingered. It's not an ordinary ghost, Huong continued slowly, each word like a nail being hammered in. That thing only appears when a vengeful spirit calls it forth. Huong shivered, the wind on her neck chilling her. She didn't understand why, but the term vengeful spirit, uttered by Huong, felt as heavy as a stone pressing on her chest. Is it Toc Tien? Huong was silent for a very long time, so silent that only the rustling of banyan leaves in the courtyard could be heard. Finally, she shook her head slowly and firmly. No, Toc Tien doesn't need a physical body. She doesn't crawl. She possesses the living. Then what was that thing just now? Huong asked, her voice hoarse. Huong fully turned to look at her. For the first time, in Huong's eyes, there was not just fatigue or sadness, but genuine fear. The fear of someone who foresees something, but cannot prevent it. It's just a warning, she said softly, but each word cut through the night like a blade. A warning for what? The wind blew stronger. A remnant of a burning incense stick was swept through the open door. Huong didn't answer immediately. She took a deep breath, looking towards the banyan tree at the front of the courtyard, its branches trembling like an old soul about to breathe its last. Then she spoke, her voice like a warning delivered straight to the listener's heart. Blood will spill. Someone will not return whole. The price of karmic fate is beginning to be collected. The next morning, everything was unusually normal. The sun rose early, filtering through the gourd vines, light streaming into the temple courtyard like honey. The early breeze blew gently, carrying the chirping of birds on the roof tiles, mingled with the sound of someone sweeping the courtyard, having woken very early. Thingok ran around the courtyard, holding a handful of multicolored hair clips, shouting animatedly. Oh my God! Who took my butterfly clips? Has anyone seen the pink and orange glitter one? Meow. It's as precious as money. Our Huong, splashing water from a bucket, shrieked, Fairy of what? Fish sauce fairy. Ask Toc Tien. She often hides things. Mai, standing behind Hao Huong, seized the opportunity and threw a whole dipper of water at Hao Huang's back, making her yelp, You village troublemaker! The entire courtyard erupted in laughter. The laughter reached the kitchen where Toc Tien was seasoning fish sauce. She yelled loudly, What's so funny? Who put fish sauce in my vegetable soup? If I make it too salty today, no one's eating. A young gourd fell with a plopao from the vine onto Thingok's head. She clutched her forehead, crying, Oh, heaven strike whoever blames me. Huong stood on the porch, holding a warm cup of tea, smiling faintly. She could feel the vibrant rhythm of life here, a bustling energy that made it seem as if all the misfortunes of the previous night were just a hazy dream. But despite her smile, her eyes never left Huong, who was picking vegetables behind the gourd vine. Huong was quiet, not joining in the laughter, nor showing any sign of noticing the lively atmosphere around her. Her hands meticulously picked each stem of vegetable, stroking the length of the leaves, as if touching something far more distant than the pile of water spinach in front of her. Huong wanted to talk about last night, about the thing crawling on the roof, about the eyeless gaze, about the reverse burning incense smoke, but her lips were tightly pressed. Huong was as quiet as a shadow that had just receded from the long night, not yet returned to daylight. Her eyes still gazed far, far away, towards the end of the gourd vine, or towards something Huong had no right to know. By the afternoon, the wind grew stronger. At first, it was just a few gusts slipping through the leaves, sounding like someone whistling through young bamboo. But then the wind suddenly turned cold, blowing in reverse, swirling into the temple courtyard in silent, fierce gusts like a whirlwind. The banyan leaves began to fall, not in the usual way, but each one dropping straight to the ground as if torn off. The sound of falling leaves was dry and brittle, like fingernails scraping the earth. Huong stood in the courtyard, her hands trembling slightly as she planted a bundle of incense sticks in an arc, each stick exactly 3 finger widths apart, no more, no less. Her movements were decisive and precise. She didn't look around, didn't say anything, until Huong asked, her voice full of apprehension, "What are you doing?" "Huong," replied softly, "to keep the children from getting cold stomachs." Her voice was low, but her eyes didn't look at the incense, nor at Huong, but gazed far away towards the banyan tree. Huong stood frozen. She didn't believe that Huong was planting incense so meticulously and regularly, like drawing a charm on the ground, just to keep anyone's stomach warm. It was a barrier, a marker, a warning for something that was about to arrive. The wind whipped fiercely, and the newly planted incense sticks began to burn in reverse from the bottom up. The flames were small but hissed, some burning a vivid red, then dropping ashes onto the ground like dried blood. The scent was not that of agar wood, but something pungent and metallic, acrid like burning flesh. The red string necklace under Huong's neck, which she always kept hidden beneath her shirt, was flung out by the wind. A tangled piece of red string, with a small bone fragment tied in the middle, bearing a faint, almost faded charm written in pale ink. Huong only glanced at it, but she felt her wrist turn icy cold. She softly called, "Huong, do you see something?" Huong didn't reply. The wind blew her hair, covering her face. But behind that curtain of hair, Huong could clearly see Huong's face turn gray. Her eyes vacant, as if her soul had been drained. Her deep contemplation no longer held its usual mysterious air, but a terrifying depth, as if she were listening to something no mortal could hear. A moment later, Huong finished planting the last incense stick, stood up straight, and lightly dusted her hands. "Go inside. This isn't an ordinary wind." Huong stood still, her chest tightening. In that moment, the wind suddenly stopped, as if someone had flipped a switch, but the cold sensation remained, seeping into every strand of her hair, every crevice of her hands. Huong turned her head to look towards the banyan tree. Something had just vanished. That night, Dong An Queen opened her eyes. No one saw it only the moonlight filtering through the window, reflecting in her eyes, which had no whites, opaque as quicklime. She left her mattress silently, her footsteps feather-light as if weightless, her skin pale, cold sweat running down her temples, her lips murmuring strange whispers, like wind hissing through rock crevices. Mai was still awake. Seeing Dong now walk out, her long shadow cast at her feet like a ghost, Mai frowned. Dong An Queen, where are you going? Can't you sleep? No one answered. Dong Ninya walked straight, dazed like a sleepwalker, but her steps were too even, too cold. Mai had a bad feeling that something was wrong, so she quickly put on a jacket and secretly followed. Reaching the riverbank, the wind suddenly changed direction. The river water turned black as ink, no longer reflecting the moonlight. The trees along the river stood motionless, neither swaying nor shaking. Dong Yenga, John stopped, standing perfectly straight, still as a wooden statue, her arms hanging loosely. Her palms were sweating, but the liquid was black and had a fishy smell. Mai slowly called out, Dong Yang Kyu, what are you doing here? The moment she finished speaking, a sweeping sound echoed, and Mai was shoved, falling face down into the mud, her face pressed against the icy cold sill. She frantically looked up and faced Dong An Quin's face. Ghostly white, mouth oozing blood, two vacant eyes dripping black water. Dong An Quin's mouth ceaselessly mumbled, her voice distorted as if many people were speaking at once. The language was not human, like the wailing echo from a deep grave. Chunahan, no, betrothed. Dong An Queen, what's wrong with you? Mai retreated, but it was too late. Dong An Queen loomed forward, holding an old knife with a broken chit and rusty tip. Without hesitation, she plunged it directly into Mai's left cheek, tearing a long gash from her cheekbone down to her jaw. Blood splattered. Blood. Blood. Shh. Blood splattered. Mai screamed, but the scream choked in her throat as Dong An Quin gripped her neck tightly with both hands. Mai struggled, kicking and clawing, but Dong An Quin didn't budge, like a stone block capable of murder. Mai's eyes filled with blood, her jaw clenched tightly. Mai's blood dripped onto the ground, mixing with the thick, foul-smelling mud, like rotting organs. Finally, Dong An Quin looked up at the sky and let out a howl, not a human sound, but like something drowning, then violently shoved Mai into the river, like throwing a sack of rotten corpses. Splash! The water surged, then calmed, no ripples. Mai didn't resurface. Only her left eye bobbed up, drifting against the current, wide with terror, her eyelid unable to close because the skin was torn. Her pupil was fully dilated, staring fixedly at the sky, where the moon had now turned blood red, like dried blood. A white shadow silently retreated into the dark bushes like a cave mouth, still clutching a blood-stained strand of hair in its hand. The fishy smell didn't dissipate, even though the wind began to blow in reverse. No one knew, no one heard. Only the demons applauded in the darkness. The next morning dawned strangely. Sunlight slanted into the temple courtyard, golden as if sprinkled with turmeric dust. The breeze was light, no rain, no clouds. A morning that would have seemed peaceful, were it not for Mai's absence. Why is Mai? sleeping in so late today? Tingok, tying her hair, chuckled, her voice half joking, half serious. Ow! Huong poked her head into the mosquito net. My! Are you awake yet? Normally, by now, you'd be down here teasing everyone. There was no reply. The mosquito net was empty. Pillows neatly stacked. Sandals placed tidily on the porch. Everything was strangely neat. Did she leave early then? Without a word, Toc Tien began to frown. Maybe she went to the market? Jumi guessed randomly. She said yesterday she was out of Chile, but did anyone see her leave? Ungok Fok asked softly, her voice trembling. No one replied. No one remembered seeing Mai since when. No one had heard those familiar footsteps since late last night. No one wanted to say it, but the feeling was strange. Let's just look around, How Huong said, trying to keep her voice normal. Everyone split up to search. In the kitchen, behind the temple, in the altar room, even the grass field behind the house. They called her name loudly, but only silence answered. Mai is overdoing it now. Toc Tien began to get annoyed. Mai, come back, don't scare us. Tingok called out loudly, her voice starting to choke. There are no new footprints in the courtyard, no clothes missing. How could she just vanish into thin air like this? Ungok Fok's voice trembled, her hands constantly wringing together. The air gradually became thick. Something unnameable quietly drifting in the wind, in the glaring sunlight, lifelessly. Mai has never left without saying anything. Something is wrong, Huong slowly spoke. Her voice not loud, but enough to make everyone fall silent. Everyone split up to search. Toc Tien and Jumi followed the small path behind the temple. Tingok ran around the village, stopping at each house to ask. How Huong and Ngok Fok headed towards the stream near the peak Jata. Huong went with Huong. Both said nothing, simply